Hello, welcome to Love and Flowers and You with Dr. Jennifer Love in Los Angeles, Dr. Crazy Michelle Flowers in Chicago, and I'm international journalist Marina Hutchinson in Atlanta. Dr. Love and Dr. Flowers are medical doctors who have more than 30 combined years of practice as psychiatrists. They have worked with thousands of patients in their busy practices. With my journalistic guidance, they hope to share what they have learned with others who may not have the time, money, or access to speak with a top expert. This show is not intended to provide medical advice. It is a place for learning about and sharing the human experiences, a place where you will laugh, learn, and be inspired to become your best self. In their offices, Michelle and Jennifer are physicians. Here they are, your friends. And today our topic is a continuation of the questions that men have for women. And one particular question recently when we talked, one of the topics was about how the generations of men have changed and the generation and the relationships have changed. But one timely thing that a friend of mine had asked me, he questioned why his wife was not as neat as his mother and as good at household cleaning and household everything as his mother was. And that particularly irked me because I feel that I'm often judged that way as well, that I'm not as good. I never will be as good a cook, a cleaner, and everything. But I think one thing is that women now in this generation have to be at home, cooking, cleaning, taking care of kids and everything, and then also have to be professionals, or many are also professionals. So I think that's the case of his wife, that she's an accountant, so that it's hard to balance it. Michelle, your thoughts on that?
Well, I think we've already spoken about what my closet looks like and a lot about what my house looks like. But so I am certainly not the expert on clean, but I have been a very neat and organized and clean person in my life. But no one is marrying me because I'm so neat and clean. And I don't hide this fact. And I don't know that. I think women sort of put their best foot forward when they're in relationship, but in general, I think if you're complaining about something that is really seriously bothering you about your partner, my question to you was this new information to you? Your wife suddenly went from being, Martha Stewart to being a total slob in the house? You didn't know this before you married her? If it's on your top 3 really important things about a person that you're going to marry, then I would suggest you find out about it before you marry them.
And Jennifer, what would be your advice to a man or my friend exactly? Because I kind of felt bad as a friend to tell him, I just think that it's really antiquated to expect your wife to have a job and then also keep the house as spotless as your mother did. But what would be your thoughts for such a man?
Well, if someone asked me that, I think I'd be curious, why are you asking that question? Because, there's a number of things, like Michelle's saying, if you want to marry someone who's a home economist, who will stay home and run your home, and there are women who do this amazingly well, and there are men who do this very well too. But if you want to marry someone who's a home economist, marry a home economist. If you're marrying a career woman, why are you having the expectation that in addition to being the full career woman, she will be your home economist, as opposed to the two of you sharing the duties of home economy? So I'm curious about those expectations. And, and then the psychiatry part of me says, well, if your mom did everything for you growing up, are you expecting that a woman will do everything and do you not know how to do anything? And, so I have all these kind of other underlying questions that I get at, but I'd be curious as to why that question's even coming up in the first place.
True, because and I think that's a lot. It's something that men don't get, but women really do get, is that their mothers or women of the past that were such great, super moms and always there, and the house was clean and the meal was on the table. But a lot of those moms did not have full-time jobs. So it's something that seems to escape some men. Michelle, your thoughts?
I'm wondering too about whether or not this was how this person, your friend, received love. If you grow up in a house where you walk in, I mean, I would love to come into a house every day that was completely orderly, and some person had done that with love. Each of you would not love for that to happen. Yeah. And what if growing up, that became his model for, this is how someone who loves you behaves.
Yeah. And I think to answer your question, Jennifer, what made him say this, I think it's just his frustration, because he was just we were having a conversation and he was just kind of frustrated that his house isn't neat like he'd like it to be. And that was exactly my suggestion. Well, why don't you clean it?
Yeah.
I want it to be neat. Just you clean it. I mean, why does it have to be the woman that has to clean the house?
Because I think, what if it is this love thing, right? Because you can hire someone who will help you clean your house, but if you think, because of the way you were raised, that your wife not doing this means that she doesn't care about you, or she doesn't love you as much as your mother did, then that's a totally different conversation. And hiring someone to clean it, or cleaning it yourself then makes it worse, probably.
People need to discuss the expectations for the relationships, what they want in the relationships, and, look, you work 40 hours a week, I work 50 hours a week. Like, how are we going to divide up, the who's going to cook? And, I love cooking, I'll cook, and I hate sorting socks, so you can sort the socks. And, people need to have these conversations about who's going to do what and who's going to take care of the yard, or, paying the bills. I mean, this is what couples do. And you're just going to have resentments if you don't really discuss, what jobs people are going to have.
And I think that's so true. It's again, that's that communication factor that is the solution to a lot of things, but people are so afraid to get there because, I don't know, they're afraid of touching on certain things, and that communicating one thing will lead to an argument. So people kind of stay, I mean, you guys must find that in your practices, that people are not communicating.
All the time. I think it's if you ask me any question about how to make a relationship better, it's going to boil down to some communication breakdown, usually. And how easy, it doesn't matter if it's men and women, or women and women, or men and men, or whoever. And even if it's in your home environment, or if it's your work environment, this setting expectations, it requires so little investment to prevent resentment over time. Sit down and take inventory of what are the household responsibilities. Everything. Who's going to replace the light bulbs? Who's going to buy toilet paper when we need it? Who's taking out the trash? It's a long list, and it will take some time. But then, just like Jennifer was saying, each of you go through one at a time and circle the things. Like, I actually really don't mind vacuuming. I kind of like it. So I'll circle that one. Like, I'll take that responsibility, and there will be some things that you don't mind taking. And why should your partner do that if it actually energizes you to do it? And then there may be like 10 or so that nobody wants to do. Then it's a conversation. Okay, how are we going to do this? Are we going to hire someone to do this? Are we going to rotate the responsibilities? We're going to have a few kids so they can help out? Don't do that. It doesn't work.
And sometimes with the maid thing, it becomes a financial issue for some people, that some people figure, well, I don't want to spend the money on a maid. And some people think, well, I do want to spend the money on the maid because I don't want to do the work myself. So that becomes another kind of fighting ground for couples. Jennifer, what about your thoughts on this?
Well, like I said, I think people need to decide early on in the relationship, in general, how they're going to divide these things up. And then that's going to change throughout the course of a relationship. If someone is sick, or someone gets a different job, or someone's going to sit and write a book and is going to take on these extra projects or responsibilities, or, someone, gets a new contract, or whatever it is, you need to then be flexible as partners to, take on more, or, kind of reassess what those kind of assigned roles are going to be. So you need to be flexible throughout the course of life, and when those things change.
I think what happens from my observations is that when you start a relationship, for a lot of women, it's all about, oh, I met this guy. And in fact, even today when I met this girl who's been with this guy 8 years, I stayed away from asking her the question, which I'm sure she gets asked way too much, is why aren't you married after being together 8 years? So I stayed away from that. I didn't ask her that. But I think that for women often, or maybe for men too, but they want to be attached. They want to get married. And so, we don't talk about the list till maybe you've been married so many years. And then it gets too difficult to talk about the separation of duties.
Can I just say something on this? Because why is this about marriage? People, marriage is a piece of paper.
Yes.
Marriage is not the relationship. The relationship is a relationship. The marriage itself is literally a piece of paper you sign and you file with your county clerk.
Yes.
That does not have any weight or significance in terms of the health of the relationship. Mm-hmm. Marriage is not a destination. It is not a wedding. It is just a step of commitment in what is supposed to be a long-lasting relationship. And so this idea of suddenly like getting married and then we'll deal with this and all this, like I want people to understand that the marriage itself, that piece of paper, isn't the relationship. The relationship is what you build together. And when you put things off and you don't deal with things or you hide things about yourself, then you either end up divorced or you end up like one of the couples I see in my office who have separate bedrooms. And they haven't had sex in 15 years and they're roommates, and they either are religious and don't believe in divorce, so they would rather be miserable together forever, or they can't afford at this point in their lives to separate and they're just kind of stuck. If you want a relationship that is healthy, that thrives, don't think about marriage as the end goal or getting married as any kind of goal.
But sometimes it's not that marriage is the end goal, but it's for some women that if you're in a relationship, then I remember when I was 28, I was a successful journalist. I had bought my own house. And I remember an uncle telling me, basically that I was a loser because, I was single. So it's kind of almost sometimes cultural or sometimes societal, that the fact is that if you're not in a relationship, it doesn't have to be marriage, but that for women often, at least the women I knew, that it was important to be in a relationship. I remember telling so many of my girlfriends, that weren't married yet, like I said, marriage isn't such a great deal. Don't be so antsy to get married or to be in a relationship, because at the end of the day, like many things, relationships, get difficult and get challenging. So I always try to tell people to focus on their careers and making yourself happy, not waiting for someone else to make you happy.
And I think the question is, are you seeking a relationship because you want to be in a relationship, or are you seeking a relationship with a particular person because you want to be in a relationship with this person? And so one is more intentional than the other. One is saying, well, I should be in a relationship, and so I'm going to put this best foot forward and do this and that to kind of force something, as opposed to saying, this is the person I want to be with, and I'm going to be genuine, and I want that person to be genuine. And so together then we'll navigate how we can make this work, or whether we can make it work. But it's different do you see kind of the difference between the subtle difference between those two things of being in a relationship with intention with a specific person versus, well, I just want to be in a relationship so people don't think I'm weird.
I get that. But also the fact is that our brains, maybe we're just geared to fall in love and to procreate or whatever it is, but that our brain is kind of doing the falling in love part, and we're not kind of planning and thinking, okay, before we get married or have a long-term relationship where we live together for 20, 30 years, let's write a list of how we're going to separate it's an afterthought that comes when all of a sudden this huge mountain of problems comes. Like, this friend of mine is telling me, why is my wife not as neat as my mom is? So I think it's a fact that many people are in that rut. And so what do you do at the midway point, at the 10-year point of a relationship to kind of say, okay, let's fix this by making a list, by having a communication that we didn't have, when we first got together.
This is my famous snorkeling analogy. Okay, so we talked about this on our first episode, and I joke with my patients all the time. Like, I have this snorkeling analogy, and whoever got famous off of a snorkeling analogy. But really what it is when you're snorkeling and you're down and you're looking down and you're watching all the life around you and all the fish and all the stuff that's going on, you can be drifting anywhere and not notice it. And what we have to do several points in our lives is stop and look up and find where that ship is or find where land is and reground ourselves and be in the area. And then you can go back to paying attention to all the little details surrounding you. We do this in life, and we need to do this in relationships too. And it's important to kind of stop and every so often ground yourself in that relationship. Recommit to each other. Look at the life. What kind of life do we want to have together? I sat with a patient, a couple in my office the other day, and I said, look, you guys are in your 60s. What do you want the next 30, 40 years of your lives to look like? Do you want to be the couple that watches TV every day together? Or do you want to be the couple that goes out and goes dancing together, that has friends over for game nights, that does these certain activities? What is the lifestyle the two of you want to have moving forward? Have that conversation with intention.
Well, and I mean, how often in my office do I see couples come in and I say, okay, what's your agreement? What did you promise each other, when you got married or when you moved in together? What were the expectations and what were the promises? And they don't know. Mm-hmm. And I think it's so much harder to, after 10 or 20 or for sure 30 years, to try and go back and set that foundation of, we constantly communicate about what our expectations are in our relationships. And so I start this with teenagers in their very first relationship. What does that look like to you? So if you're a girlfriend or you're a boyfriend, so we're deciding now that we're going to be girlfriend and boyfriend. So what goes along with that? What does that mean? Does that mean exclusivity? Does that mean that you call me every day? Because it might look like something very different for me than it looks for you, but it doesn't matter. Practicing those skills of communication and defining expectations is going to work out for you no matter who you end up with.
And it's interesting you say this, because my daughter recently got married this past June. And there's advice that I try to tell anybody who gets married. I always say, write a list of the things that you love about each other, that you like about each other, and also add what your expectations are in marriage. Because I think when you're at the beginning of a relationship, you kind of know those things. And the 10-year mark and further down in the relationship, you've kind of forgotten all those things. So I love that, that you're finding people in your office and you're telling them what are the expectations. I completely get that they don't know, because we have not been taught to make that list and to put those expectations out on paper. So I think that's something we should be doing.
I love that you bring that up, because in some of the questions that we got as we're looking at what do men want to know about women, one of the questions I got actually from the Whiskey Club of Lillehammer in Norway. I love, by the way, that we have like this whiskey club of men asking love, flowers, and you questions about relationships. Now I completely lost my train of thought. I just dropped my question.
Okay, well, we'll come back to you. We'll come back to your question. So you were saying how you love the idea that we're talking about setting up this list right at the beginning.
Yes,
of the relationship.
yes. One of the questions that came from them, thank you, was about why do women expect men to read their minds?
Yes.
And so when you're writing down what you want in a marriage and what you want out of that relationship and what you expect that partnership to be, then you need to communicate that to the other person. And they may say, wow, you're kind of crazy with all of this, or yeah, this sounds really good, or well, what if we do it this way? It starts that dialogue. So know what you want and write it down, but have that conversation with them, because men cannot read our minds, and they keep asking, well, why do women expect us to be able to read their minds?
I think sometimes a good way to show a man what you want is by doing things like that you want him to do to you, you do them for him. And then you kind of teach them what it is you want by doing certain things that you would like done. Like, if you want to be thoughtful, if you want to get a Valentine's gift or whatever, you do it for them. And then they think, oh, maybe I should do it for her. What do you think? Is that just something I found useful and helpful?
I think that drives women crazy. I think you have to tell them, because they'll do it and do it and do it. And some men aren't going to pick up on these hints. And then you're going to build these resentments against them and get really mad one day. And they're going to be clueless why you're mad at them. I think it's just best to be direct. Honey,
yeah, I agree. That is. But sometimes it's hard for certain people to be direct. And sometimes it's hard for men to accept direction.
Yeah.
Oh.
So this is my thing. If it's hard for you to be direct, and it's hard for you, or if it's hard for you to listen to someone who's being direct to you, then that is your first priority. Like, figure out how you can get honest. Because this, you're not doing anybody any good by not being direct. And if you don't know what you want and you don't know what works for you, then your relationship is destined for failure.
So get direct, figure out how to say what you want. So that's,
don't keep your needs a secret from your partner.
No, it's like, and a lot of times, I work with young people all the way up to people who have been married for 50 years. But when I'm working with young people and they're trying to decide if they're going to engage in a sexual relationship, or they're going to try to decide if they're moving in, but it's like, well, I don't want to ask him about his finances because I don't know if we're there yet. Are you kidding me? Like, if you can't have this conversation about what kind of protection you're going to use when you have sex, then it means that you're not comfortable enough to have a sexual relationship. And if you're not comfortable enough discussing your financial expectations, then you're not ready for moving in together. And so I think comfort in discussion and communication is a really good gauge for the health of a relationship.
I love that. Guess what? We've run out of time again. So we'll wrap it up for today, and we'll continue the topic on our next episode. Thank you.
And we need all the world's whiskey clubs to start sending us questions.
and we'll definitely do that. So thanks to our audience for joining us, and we'll reunite for next week. Bye. Thank you.